funny, my face. Kiss on it. That's funny.
Whoa, we're going to be live. It's about a 10-second delay, isn't it? I think something like that. So we are now live, I guess. Yeah, we're now live. Oh, straight away, Trevor Normans gave us a super chat. Thank you very much, Trevor. The old team back together, so will be a good stream. Yeah, we hope so. So, yeah, my name's Lee. As you know, if you're a regular follower of the channel, I live here in Shenzhen, China. Matt, I spoke to him yesterday. We speak every few weeks. Oh, hang on, I've got some major echo in my ear at the moment. So, because Vicky has
you getting echo? I'm good. I'm good on my
Vicky
side.
has it. That's it. That's better. It's all sorted now. Vicky hadn't muted the live stream on YouTube. It's all done. So yeah, me and Matt, we talk about what every 3 or 4 weeks now. We used to talk every day.
Come on, that's generous. We don't talk very often.
Not as often as not as much as we should. But I spoke to him yesterday. I says, "Hey Matt, how do you fancy jumping on a live stream and we'll talk about the USA, China, and maybe some other things that are going on around the world." As you're probably aware, if you follow Matt's channel, he's been in the States for pretty much a little more than 2 years now. So how you doing? How's things going?
Well, not all in the States. I mean, I've been bouncing around a little bit. I went to the Czech Republic, Slovakia.
Oh, yeah, you did, yeah.
Italy. I cycled around Europe a little bit, but mostly in the United States. In the United States, I've been all over, too, in my little van journey to get the van built, which we'll talk about probably in a little bit. I drove all around the United States. From Michigan, where I am now, to Florida, from Florida all the way to California, all the way up to Oregon and back like twice. So like I did a full-on circumnavigation of the United States a couple of times. But yeah, most of my time was here in Southeast Michigan, where I'm at right now.
And so when you first left China and you went to the US, you were open to have your van finished within like 4 to 6 months, and it's almost finished now, though, right?
I mean, okay, so why don't we make this sort of a part 1 of part 2, and then part 2 we can actually do it inside the van.
Okay.
And I think that would be cool, like because the studio is almost ready to debut, and it would be fun to kind of debut it with you, and maybe we could even do some sort of a collaborative live stream series where I start roaming around with the van and we can do on location stuff where I'm traveling around in the van, because it is really awesome. It has been a can of worms that just has engulfed me, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, okay, that'd be a great idea. I'd love to do that with you, but that'd be absolutely cool. So, yeah, so let's talk about how you've now been out of China for just a little over 2 years. Are you missing China? To talk about some of the differences you've noticed, because before that you were pretty much in China for what, 10 plus years, right?
15
years.
Yeah.
And you've gone back to the USA. Talk a bit about, did you have some culture shock? Have things changed a lot there? How are you finding it? How have you adapted?
Well, I lived in Ningbo for basically the bulk of the 15 years. And Ningbo is it's funny because you come to America and you talk to people about Ningbo and nobody's ever heard of it, but it's this huge metropolis. Like, I think it's like not like in Ningbo proper, like the whole of Ningbo, you got like 9 million people, and it's a huge city, and it has density to it. China is, especially in the coastal cities, even in the cities that are inland, there's density to community. Here, I live in a house. I can exist with my car traveling out to places to kind of bring in sustenance, food, and things like this. But I don't have to see my neighbors. I don't have to interact with my community the way that people interact with their community in China. I don't have the ability to go outside of my door and pick up some food from the street and meet and interact with people in the community, which energy-wise, I fed off of that. That was so motivating for me. And it's a little bit stagnant to have that same. Now I am in Southeast Michigan too, so that could be a little bit of a you know, I think I've got audio coming in through my phone. Do you hear an echo?
No.
Let's see here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
I'm hearing echo coming through my phone. I'm going to turn my phone off. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just picking up on that though, but that's very much like. So go on.
Yeah, I mean, like I live in Southeast Michigan too, which is not exactly it's like you could probably get more of this sort of community aspect if you're in the coastal cities of America, like LA or San Diego or New York City or you know, Florida maybe, but it's sort of raw in China, you know, and I do miss that, and it's almost like it's a more relaxed sort of lifestyle here, and I miss China a lot. Basically, the end all be all of it is that I miss the energy and the vibe of China. A lot of my friends who are YouTubers and creators in China posting videos of, you know, going to big festivals and a lot of lights and a lot of energy and a lot of things going on, and they're going here and they're going there. And I am a little bit jealous of that, you know. But I do have a plan here, which has taken a lot longer. Like you said, it was supposed to be 6 months, but it's pushing on 2 years now. And the investment money-wise has been huge. But the payoff still should be quite great. It's just taken longer to get there.
Yeah, what you're saying about it being quiet, that's just like I experienced when I go back to the UK. You know, as you say, even sort of, let's say, more rural areas are still pretty dense here. People live very close together. There's much more of a community. Like you know, I can go to my parents' home when I go back to the UK, which is where I stay. And I remember last time back, it's like 7:30 in the morning, and I get up and I've got to walk about, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes to this sort of little local sort of convenience store where I can get a latte. And I can walk there and see nobody else. It's like, there's no way walking for 15 minutes in China you wouldn't see anybody else. Like, I walk out my complex here and there's hundreds of people about, you know, and I'm not even in the, you know, the busiest part of Shenzhen. But you just don't get that back in the UK. And I think more so in the US, you definitely need a car to get around, don't you? You can't really manage without a car, you know, unless you're right in the middle of, I don't know, New York City or something.
Right.
But that's kind of similar in the UK because the public transport's pretty shit if you live out of the city centre. And again, that's something that's different here. You can get around, like you say, there's so much going on. You know, I can walk outside my complex and within 2 or 3 minutes, there's restaurants, there's stores, there's bakeries, there's, you know, there's just, it's all going on, you know.
And the other thing is that people don't realize, like, people don't have a sense of what they don't have or do have here in the States. Or actually, they do have a sense of what they do have, and they overinflate it. It's like, we're great, we're perfect, you know. There's that side of things, like, oh, it's America, you know, we got everything, we don't need any of the outside stuff. Whereas if you have traveled, then you can communicate with somebody about the convenience of a very clean, sophisticated subway system like Shanghai has, or Shenzhen. Or you can say, like, even in Ningbo, like, I could walk 2 blocks to the subway entrance and then travel completely across town and then pop out for a couple of dollars US equivalent. And you basically have access to the entire city. And if you really wanted to, you go to the train station, and for a few more bucks, you could travel across the entire country. And the ability that gives you to move and live within the confines of your country is so huge. And in the States, obviously we have cars, but cars aren't as intimate. Again, even the transportation end of things, the transportation system in China or Asia in general forces people to bond, whether you're even sitting next to somebody or you're looking at them across a train car or whatever, you're at least there. Whereas in a car, you're in a four-walled device, then you go to your house and it's four-walled house, and then you go to your cubicle and it's a four-walled cubicle, and it's always the confines of this thing. And I don't even have the cubicle because I work from home, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's something here, there. You're almost, everywhere you go, you're part of the community, because there's just so many people about. We don't have that. I mean, I've been to the States many times. I haven't been to Michigan, but I've been a number of times, and it always seems to me that you have like it'll be a shopping part, but it'll be maybe 20 minutes drive or half an hour's drive. Then there'll be a cluster of stores there, all big stores. And every one of those clusters has literally got all the same stores. There'll be a Walmart or a Target, and then there'll be and like that's pretty much it for shopping. There's not so many sort of small independent stores anymore, and that's something that there's still a lot of. Although the big cities have all the same stores in China, there's still a lot. You go down all the small streets, there's still a lot of, there's the guy selling the Bowsers or the bubble tea or whatever. There's some, last night we'd been out somewhere. We come back, it's about 10 o'clock. We're a little bit hungry. There's a woman at the side of the road doing chow mein. Oh yeah, we'll have a couple of portions of chow mein. It's so cheap, and you just don't see that in England, and I don't think you really see that in the US. If I remember, it's been a while since I've been there. I think the last time I went there was about 7 or 8 years ago. That was to Florida, Orlando. But I remember even going there on vacation, you need a car. It's very difficult to get around without a car.
You know what my friend Annie, what my wife Annie noticed was that when going out to eat is something that's it's sort of boring, because if you were to go to go to a new restaurant, let's go to a new restaurant here in the United States, you go, and it's just another variation of booths and tables. You want to sit at the booth? You want to sit at the table? They're basically the same architecture. They're the same framework. They're the same layout, and the food is slightly variant. Whereas when you go to a Chinese restaurant, it's like an experience. You come out, the food comes out. It's got some bubbling, dry ice smoke coming out of it or something. You have the architecture is all kind of crazy. The only way that you're going to find an equivalent is to go to a ethnic restaurant here, a really ethnic Iranian restaurant that has maybe hammered tin walls, those hammered tin panels, in the walls and stuff like that. But in China, it's like every restaurant, it almost feels like you're walking into another place, another country.
Yeah, it's an experience, isn't it?
The lady walks you up. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's like malls. We have a mall here called Somerset, and it is like the Louis Vuittons, and it's got a big fountain, and it's got these water oases in different places. I take my daughter Eva, and we go and take a picture with Santa Claus there, because it's got a huge Santa Claus kind of thing there. And but it's like an ordeal to go to Somerset, because it's the most hoity-toity hotel in town. And when I was cycling around China, the average mall was like a Somerset quality mall. In these like third tier towns. And then like you'd have people that would trek all over Southeast Michigan to go to Somerset because it's like this really like high end thing. And I'm like, but well, that was like, you know, what was it? Just Jian's hotel, like little city in a smaller province, or mall. You know, it was the same thing. You know, so it's just kind of like, and the people, and that's what I'm saying, is that the people here don't even appreciate how crazy that is. You know, because they don't even know. You know, China, this country that has been ostracized. And that's the other thing. Oh my God, it's just constant rabble rousing here in America against China. It's just this constant, just China bad, China bad, China bad. And I'm just like, you guys need to go there, you know.
Why do you think that is, Matt? Do you think that's down to the government, the media, or both? Because they're obviously forming that opinion from somewhere. I mean, I put out a video yesterday. So since COVID's finished and China's somewhat opened up, they've actually relaxed the visa rules here. So you can turn up at one of a number of cities. You can get these 144-hour, like 5-day visas. You are somewhat limited that you can only travel in a certain province or a certain city. But more recently, there's like 7 or 8 countries, including some European countries. The UK is not one of them, but you can come here now for 15 days visa free. So you're getting a lot more like travel vloggers who are coming. And I put out a video yesterday that features 3 of these. There's an English couple, there's a Canadian couple, and there's a German guy. And the German guy did a fairly detailed video about his experience, and one thing that really sort of hit him was that the amount of negative comments he got. He's traveled to various Southeast Asian countries, you know, Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, XYZ. But he says he couldn't believe the amount of like hatred comments he got on his China visits. Look, I was just a tourist visiting there, vlogging what I saw. He says, I got people saying, oh, you've sold your soul to the Chinese government. You know, I'm really disappointed with you, Ken. You know, what are you doing supporting the Chinese? He says, man, I was just like a tourist going there. So it'd be interesting to know why. Obviously, a lot of those comments he perceives came from Westerners by the names and the YouTube profiles. I just think I can only surmise it's the government and the media that's pushing that narrative into people's heads.
Oh, I mean, of course. I mean, look, who was Josh Hawley? Wasn't that Josh Hawley that was just talking about, like, you're from, you know, you're a member of the CCP, and the guy's like, I'm Singaporean. He's like,
it was Tom Cotton.
Tom Cotton, yeah, and the guy like literally had been to Singapore just previously. It's all fabricated faux bullshit, you know, and it's all designed to get you to think a certain way and distract from the problems that we have here. I mean, I'm really convinced, you know, listen, America has got a lot of problems, and so many of them are based on where money goes and who's getting money and how money is used. And the only way that you're going to distract away from stuff like that is to find somebody else to shed light upon on an issue that's not related to that. And the only way that you can get as far away from that as possible is to literally go to the most far away places possible, which is China. You know what I mean? It's like literally like, you know, you dig a hole long enough, you'll get to China, because it's literally on the opposite side of your life, you know, in America. And I think that is a really good strategy for politicians to use. It doesn't hurt them politically so much because, you know, as far as the percentage of the Asian population, it's not huge in America. So it's not like, and a lot of the ABCs are American-born Chinese or American-born Asians. You know, a lot of them haven't been in China for a few generations and probably do empathize with anger towards China or Asia because their grandparents or whatever had struggles here, or had struggles there, but so it's fertile territory, and they beat it and beat it and beat it and beat it all the time. I'm side story. It's funny. Yeah. I'm reading some of your comments here, and some of them are like, this Kevin Fagan guy is kind of like hating on China. This is my first live stream in a while, and this is my first time actually like even talking about the China topic in some time, and it's kind of funny. It's like I feel like I'm home again.
Yeah,
you got all this craziness.
But what amazed me, Matt, I'm showing these three people now. These are three lots of people. They've never been to China before, right? And they've come and they've just basically documented what they've seen. And yet, I put it out there, say, look, the basis of the video is, look, I've been here saying this for, many years, and I constantly come under attack by Westerners for showing what China's actually like. And yet these people who've got, people obviously think I've got some sort of, direct line to Xi Jinping, and he delivers money to me, and that's why I talk nice about China. So I was trying to highlight the fact that, look, these are people that are just travelers, and they've come here and they're saying exactly the same as me. They're going, my God, the infrastructure's amazing. The cities are really clean. Everything's sort of organized. They even say, before we came here, people were saying, oh, you can't film anywhere. People will follow you around all the time. Yeah, they mentioned there's lots of cameras, but they all also mentioned about how safe they felt here, how they didn't get followed, how they didn't get stopped from filming anywhere. And that's something we've known for forever, because we've spent all that time here. But still, you get these people, even though they've listened to us and now they're listening to them, they still refuse to accept the reality of the situation. That just blows my mind. How closed-minded or dumb can you be when you're seeing multiple sets of people? Do they literally think all those people come here and have some sort of payment to say good things? I just find it just blows my mind.
Yeah, well, that's the power of propaganda, That's to be able to look at somebody, especially think about the cultural appropriation issue. That's like, remember when you and I went to, we were in Mongolia, right? And we tried on those Mongolian outfits.
Yeah.
And we were literally in a store having fun with the owner, who was culturally Mongolian, sharing in the culture by wearing their clothes, and people who had no relationship to Mongolia, the culture, or the people were telling us what we were doing was wrong.
Yeah. It's just,
what I mean? Like, so unplugged from the actual on the ground, but they thought they were right. You know what I mean? It's a strange world we live in today, where people, they feel like they're empathizing, like to an extreme, but in reality, they have zero idea, and they're blind to the actual things that would get them to empathize. Like we're literally empathizing, and they're telling us that they're empathizing by telling us that we're wrong in what we're doing. It's a very weird thing that is happening in today's culture, I think.
It really is. So when you're in the US and you bump into somebody, do you generally tell them you spent like 15 years in China, or do you not talk about it?
Okay. So what I was telling you earlier about this energy and the anger towards China is an American-wide, like it's like this layer above the typical American. Every time that I have talked to a typical American, other than a few instances, it's always been very compassionate. So it's always been like, oh, I studied Asian culture, or I have family that has traveled there. Oh, it's an amazing place. I haven't, other than a few instances, one with my daughter in school where she was kind of like, she's had a couple of instances where she's like been, you can't sit here because you're Chinese or this and that, which I really, really hate. And
she's what, 10 years old?
Seven.
Oh my God.
In second grade, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. She had to talk to she reported that some kid was like, you can't sit here because you're Chinese and it's only for Americans. And she reported the kid, and they ended up going to they went to the principal, and she was really distraught about it. I didn't like the fact that she had to do that, but I'm glad that she stood up for herself. But mostly when you bring up the idea of China with people, they're very open to it, and they're not like standoffish about it. But I don't hang in circles of people who are bigots typically, so that might be a thing too. I don't know.
Just to we say thank you to oh, sorry, go on. I'll just say thank you to Trevor because he sent us a super chat. He says, if the Chinese Communist Party of China, said Lee and the other nice YouTubers, and paid the so-called actors in their videos, the government would be skint. Yeah, I mean, you know, I find it such a ridiculous notion that people think YouTubers are paid by the government to say nice things. You know, you come to China yourself, it's hard not to say nice things because it is a pretty impressive country. You know, when I go back to the UK and I walk around a city, I can be away for 3 years and I think, oh, not much has changed here. It's just there's just a few more shops that have closed down. There's a bit, you know. I must say though, I went back in May last year and there was a park I used to spend a lot of my time in when I was a young lad. Most of my spare time we'd spend with friends in that park, and I expected to go to it and find it all a bit shit and that, but actually it was not as bad as I expected it to be. But that was a nice surprise. But then I went to there's a supermarket. It was one of the first sort of real big supermarkets in the area. I grew up in a place called Oldbury. Most people will never heard of it. It's a very small town, maybe 10,000-15,000 people. But I went to the supermarket there and it was an absolute shithole, you know. It was like, it was really not good. But you know, you go away from China for 6 months and come back and there's something shining. Now, I mean, we don't live in the center of Shenzhen by any means. I'm fairly far out, maybe 30 kilometers out the center. And we had this area, you know, these areas every community has where there's like a square and a bit of a park and that, where they've just renovated all that. And it is absolutely beautiful. I will take some film around there at some point. It's not quite finished yet, but they've just replaced everything. And actually, it wasn't even that bad before. But they thought, oh, it's getting a bit old. They've modernized it. And this is happening all the time, everywhere you go. I went on a road trip about 3 months ago now into some fairly rural areas in the mountains of Sichuan. And I was just amazed at some of the beautiful villages, you know, just so well kept and modern and that, you know, I see what, like, we all know the South African guy and his little buddy, his little American buddy put out.
Are they still around?
Oh, sadly they are, yeah. You know, they will put out, there's a guy who does, if you actually want to laugh, there's a guy here, his channel's called 86 Lao Wei. The guy's name Wu Jiao, Canadian guy. I think he's actually in the stream, but he does some he is. Great takedowns on their videos. He shows that, you know, Winston will say, oh, I've got some fresh clips, and he'll show that they're like 7 years old or something like that, or, you know, he hunts locations down where they've been. But, you know, that they spread such a lot of bullshit. And what is the crazy thing is, I know when I've been featured in one of his videos, he's got some obsession with me for some reason. I have no idea why.
Yeah. But you'll see a boost.
But I see a boost in the hate comments. And it's all like word for word things he said. It's all his phrases and that. I'm thinking, oh my God, have you people just not got minds of your own? Can't you do just like a little bit of, you know, digging and find that it's bullshit?
But doesn't that show the influence that we, and, you know, just shows influence that people have over other people? like you were saying about the China content or the China vibe here in America or whatever. It just shows that you and I and Winston and Matt, we all have like this, we have a responsibility because the content that we put out does influence people, you know, like literally influences people who can't otherwise go to China themselves, you know, or are afraid of it, you know. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, as far as I'm aware, I think the US is a bit like the UK. There's a lot of people who don't have the ability to travel, and I understand that. But what I would ask is that they're a little bit more open-minded and just look at a bit of alternative media. You know, YouTube's probably the biggest media outlet on the planet bar none. You know, just look at, you know, watch some of the anti-China videos, watch some of the pro-China videos, and then do a little bit of digging. But I think this is the problem, because people don't, you know, they either go into one camp or go into the other camp, and there's very little critical thinking about, you know, the reality of the situation. I find that just quite bizarre. You know, everything I read, I try to somehow fact check, you know, to, well, you know, is that really the case? You know, so just, and it's not difficult because there's so much information at your fingertips now. But I also feel that there are a lot of people who have the ability to travel, yet they don't travel to China. They'll go to Thailand, they'll go to Philippines, they'll go to Indonesia. You know, why don't they come to China? Is that because they've been so brainwashed into thinking it's such a bad place? I quickly just tell you a quick other one. So Ollie, he spent the last year in the Philippines. He's now moved to Vietnam. So he went to the Philippines. He wanted to become a poker player, but he's now decided after a year of doing that, it's not really what he wants to do. So I think this year he's going to travel around Southeast Asia. So he's starting in Vietnam. They're going to do other Southeast Asian countries. And I believe he's going to start making content again, although nothing yet.
Good.
I'm glad he's doing that. But he was talking. He uses Grab in the Philippines when he was there. It's a bit like DD. It's a bit like Uber in the States. And
yeah, I know Grab.
Now you've been to the Philippines, right, Matt?
No, never.
No, okay. So the Philippines, apart from Manila, it's pretty poor country. You know, it's like very poor. So this Grab driver, he says, generally when I get a Grab, the driver will like to talk to me because I'm a foreigner. And he says, I mentioned to this one guy, he says, oh, I lived in China. And this Filipino Grab driver says, China? Why do you want to live in China? It's like really poor and backwards there. It's like, and I'm thinking, man, you know,
no self-reflection.
Obviously that they still have that thought, because obviously a lot of the Filipino media is controlled by the US. So it's almost as if, you know, that the Western media wants people to think China is still poor and backward, because they want to say, oh, well, look how good we are. You know, we're the best. I mean, I often hear this from, you know, my interactions with American people. Yeah, but we're the best. I used to have a friend who lived in Guangzhou from California. He's moved back to the States. He moved back during COVID, and he's never come back to China. But we would have conversations with him, and he'd be, yeah, but America are the best. Of course, America are number one. You know, and it's like, in a lot of those people's minds, there can't possibly be somewhere else that's better. Now, personally, I think there's a lot of sort of countries now overtaking the US and the UK and parts of Europe. You know, they're moving on. You know, it's not like it was 30 or 40 years ago, but people are still in that mindset of the past, and I find that just mad.
Well, I mean, there's a mindset as well, because if you're like people, I've been to a lot of different countries, and people ask me like, what's your favorite, or, you know, do you miss America, or like, I like all of these different countries for so many different reasons. You can appreciate, you know, all of these things. I'm not latched on to any one country in particular, and I think that you fanboy too much on, you know, on your home country, and you think that they're perfect. And if you're not willing to open your mind to the fact that there's other places that, yeah, I've been to North Korea. There's some amazing things that I like about North Korea, you know, but there's, you know, some amazing things I like. I love Vietnam, you know, I love China, and I love all of these places that I've been, you know. And let's see. Okay.
Yeah,
hearing, but yeah.
I think there's
hey,
different.
There's some people in your chat here I haven't seen for a while, so I just
yeah. It's there's quite a few. We've got about 280 people in at the moment, which is great. Some very familiar names. That's really good. So okay, so let me get this. So something that strikes me. This is a little bit more, I'd say, controversial maybe, but I find it incredible when I see things like, I'll see people. I'm quite active on Twitter. I'm a bit more political on Twitter. And I get a lot of attack on Twitter. I get a lot of attack from Americans on Twitter. But what I find, I also feel there's some very nuanced Americans on Twitter as well. But what I find amazing is that you'll see a lot of Americans, they'll be complaining about, you know, the healthcare is crazy expensive there. You know, the education is if you want a good education, that's now expensive there. And there's all these things. And they will have these debates. We haven't got $100 million to be able to do something better in the community healthcare or, you know, the community education. But as soon as it's a war or it's weapons, we can find $100 billion for Ukraine. We can find endless money to send to Israel. And I just wonder why don't the normal people in the US really start sort of creating more of a issue over these kind of things, you know, because it seems to me that there's a small group of politicians who are making decisions for like a whole group of people, you know, and I suspect there's probably a lot of those people that wouldn't be or are not happy with those decisions that are being made.
I think that probably one of the bigger things is that, and another thing I've noticed about being in America is that it's really easy to be baseline comfortable. Like, I'm talking about you can go to Walmart, you can go to Meijer or Kroger, and you can buy groceries relatively cheap, even with inflation and what people have said that the cost of goods are going up. But even with the cost of goods that have gone up, like I talked to some friends, even like your friends in the UK, how much is gas there? Like we might complain about $3.30, $4 a gallon, but if you go to, you know, different parts of the world, it's crazy expensive, you know, and, you know, so we're not under the pressure to the extent, even today with the prices that are higher than when I was younger, and I believe that things are overpriced. They're not pressured. The only way that you're going to get a populace pushing against policies to the extent that they're actually going to change is you need pressure. And I'm not saying that like there's not protests. I mean, there's even in Canada there's like the farm protests, and there's like these kinds of movements, and there are. But I find it amazing that we can come up with $1 billion to pay for bombs, and yet still keep the wheels of the country continue to move. You need those wheels to grind in order for people to force change. And, you know, politicians, as long as they can go into their back pocket and play with currency and push up our debt ceiling and do all of these things in order to come up with the money to fund projects that help them put money back in their pockets, people are going to continue to live their lives and go to Walmart and complain about paying a few extra bucks for a loaf of bread, or if they, you know, and as long as they can continue, basically, you gotta make, it's a sad reality, but you gotta kind of make people suffer, you know, really suffer in order for them to fight back and force change. I mean, most people I know hate the wars that we involve ourselves in, would much rather have investments in education or investments in healthcare rather than investments in struggle and bombs and murder. We're all watching the videos from Gaza and videos from these parts of the world that are having real horrible tragedy, and we're investing in this tragedy, and we don't like it, but a lot of us are just sort of caught up in this, this rat race of feeding our families, doing our things, and complaining about what we're doing. Feeding our families, doing these things, and complaining about what we're doing, and we're caught up in this thing. But we're in this. As long as that cycle can propagate, we won't force change. You know what I mean?
I mean, I personally think that, see what I'm seeing over the last few months and weeks with the whole Gaza situation. I think America are going completely off the rails. I mean, you had Biden talking about the last 2 or 3 days. He made some statement about there's a group of the neocons in the US who are itching to bomb Iran. They've been wanting to do that for years, and so under the administration's sort of say so now, they've gone and bombed Syria and Iraq because they believe these groups are being controlled by Iran. And then Biden comes out and say, oh, well, the people who supply the weapons are complicit. Well, isn't that exactly what the US are doing with Israel, with the Gaza situation? And just be interested there in the States. Do you pick up the sense that people in the US are getting the feeling, because I'm getting the feeling, certainly from being in China and speaking to people in other countries, that America are really, and parts of Europe, are starting to isolate themselves on the world stage, because they're choosing this sort of side to be on, that like everybody else is going, what the hell,
this is crazy. Yeah. I mean, like the whole world is, what's crazy is when I started traveling on YouTube through China, one of the reasons that I started my channel was because there wasn't an ability for people to see what China was really like. And I was just sharing daily videos of life in China, and people were like, oh, that's just like here, or that's different in a way that is positive or interesting, and sharing that, and war is like an ultimate definition of the power of that, because I do not think that what's happening in Gaza is historically strange. I think that if you were to have the social media power that in maybe Kuwait, or maybe in struggles that we've had in the past, World War II, it would have been, we would have had the ability to peek into the horrors of what happens when you have these sorts of strife situations. And I think that it's really sobering. Like, I'm plugged into Twitter, and I see these videos of people my daughter's age going through, I can't even imagine. And in some ways, I think it's like hopefully moving people into more of an understanding of the horrors of what we as humans kind of can get ourselves involved in. And maybe like I don't think you would see the amount of support for the people of Palestine. This is way off topic, but you wouldn't see the support for people in Palestine in 30 years ago. You just wouldn't. I don't think so. Not the global support. So I don't know. This is way off topic, but I'm not trying. It is such a strange topic here in America, because the propaganda here is really strong, and you're either, I don't know how to put it. It's just like, how could you watch a video of a child being maimed and say, well, that's cost of doing business. You know what I mean? Like, instead of thinking we need to figure out a way to get beyond something like this and the horrors of this, anyways.
Yeah,
it's been we're watching all of this stuff go in my mind and in my eyes, and I'm living this comfortable life. It's sort of like sobering to see that all the time, and like say, what can I do about it? anyways, I'm sorry, that's way off topic.
Yeah, it's but you know, do you mentioned that, you know, they basically keep printing money, so the debt ceiling's now gone over $34 trillion, and I believe just the interest payment on a yearly basis now is approaching $1 trillion or around that. Do you think there's going to come a day of reckoning? Because a lot of the world now are starting to you know, after what the US, they put those sanctions on Russia, thinking that within months Russia's going to collapse and Putin's going to be out, and it's hugely backfired on them. And now Biden's talking about, okay, well, but basically, you know, they've already frozen all these $300 billion of Russian assets. So because they can't get a new bill through Congress to give, you know, Ukraine another $60 billion. Biden is talking about, well, okay, we'll have that $300 billion and we'll give it to Ukraine. You know, he's almost committing financial suicide for the US, because everybody around the world is now looking and thinking, well, you know, that could be us next. You know, it could be America stealing our money and you know, putting sanctions on. I mean, you know, this has been a weapon that America have used for many years. You know, Cuba, Venezuela, these. But do you think there's coming a time now where, you know, they've gone a step too far and this is going to start hurting? Because I see, you know, you've had some of these Middle Eastern countries now join the BRICS consortium. And more of them are talking about, well, we want to trade between ourselves without using the dollar, because, you know, the bottom line is America have sort of scared a lot of other countries about holding too much dollars. You know, China are reducing their holdings. And do you think this is going to come back to bite them on the ass in the US? Because there's going to come a point you cannot just keep increasing debt at the rate they're increasing it at. I mean, it's really getting out of control, isn't it?
Well, you can't make it last forever. So there is going to come a point in time where our past is going to come back to bite us, and the path that we're on. I mean, we continue to, as Americans, you know, we continue to spend without putting money back into the coffers to balance. And I mean, but there's also arguments to how debt is a good thing. There's also arguments how, like, you can leverage debt to prosper. And you know, the problem is, like, and I hate to be like fanboy for China all the time, you know, but you know, and China isn't in a great financial situation at this very moment right now either, you know, but they have the results of investing in assets and infrastructure that can provide for the country through the tough times. You know, like America has invested so heavily. Like you said, we can create, you know, $800 million a year towards a military budget, and at the end of that year, what do we have? We have another ship that requires millions of dollars of maintenance. It's like a depreciating asset, whereas China will develop a train system or an integrated. Now, the train system might be somewhat of a loss, but what that train system allows the country to do and what allows its populace to do is so intertwined with the success of the average Chinese person that the country, even if it has, like I hear a lot of people saying China's failing right now because of Evergrande or these sorts of like big financial hits that they've taken. And I'm like, well, but the average Chinese person has a beautiful roof over their head. They have, you know, the ability to move and find opportunities. They have, you know, they have all of these sorts of physical manifestations of what the successful stages of China have provided for them, that even if they run into a hard time, they still have these things. Whereas America, I mean, we can't eat bombs. You know what I mean? We can't eat, you know, or, you know, aircraft carrier doesn't do me, the average American, any good. Whereas, a new high-rise apartment for my grandma, that helps the whole family, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I actually, you talk about the economy in China is not in a good place. I think it's kind of limited. I mean, I think there's the big issue in property here, but very interestingly, I was listening to there's a guy, a Chinese guy called by the name of Eric Lee, and he sits on a think tank at Fudan University actually. So they obviously advise the government. And he gave a very interesting speech at some forum about 3 weeks ago. That it was basically saying that actually a lot of the issues at the moment are kind of been brought on by government policy because they saw that the current path was not the path they needed to be on. So one of the things, and he says, if you read the 5-year plan that the Chinese government put out, he says, you'll find everything you need to know in there. Because I don't know whether in the US, but in the UK, right? So we have voting for a party every 5 years. And about the last sort of 6 to 8 months up to the election, each party who wants to be in the running, they all produce something called a manifesto, which is basically a list of promises that vote for us and we will do this, 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 and this, right? If you vote us in. And you can almost guarantee that, let's say there's 10 items on that list of promises. By the time they get to the end of their term, if they get elected, you'll be lucky if they've carried out 1 or 2 of those 10 promises. But if you actually look at the Chinese 5-year plan, they will get to the end of that 5 years and they've actually actioned a vast majority of that plan in the 5-year plan. So what Eric Lee was saying is that part of this sort of issue they have with the economy now is actually to do with the restructuring that the Chinese government are doing. So they purposely wanted to burst the property bubble for one thing, because they felt that, and the president Xi Jinping has said this numerous times, that houses shouldn't be for speculators. They should be for living in. So they've kind of burst. Now, perhaps they should have acted earlier, because one of the biggest issues is a lot of these property companies massively over leveraged themselves. They were borrowing ridiculous amounts of money and building. But it's quite interesting listening to his speech, how he's sort of saying that we'll go through this, and he reckons it'll last another 2 to 3 years before it gets better. But I can tell you, right, me and Vicky recently purchased a new car, right, and we've bought an EV. And when we went to the place to pick it up, I was like gobsmacked at how many people were there. This is just like a Wednesday afternoon. There was about another 8 or 9 people there at the same time as us, also picking up new cars. And I'm thinking, I thought the economy was supposed to be bad, and there's people, and we haven't bought this cash. We've had a loan to buy it, but we're talking to the guy at the show, and he goes, "Oh no, most Chinese don't have a loan to buy a car. They just buy it. They just pay for it." And I'm thinking, wow. And it just brings me on to another question. Commando Crossfire has asked, having lived in the Western China, do you feel that there is more economic freedom among middle class in China than the US or the UK to travel, invest, and play? So I'll throw that out to you. So do the middle class spend more than Europeans and Americans on travel and playing?
Well, I don't. I've been away. I'm not gonna pull the Winston card and be like, I know exactly what's going on in China today at this very moment. I've been gone for a little while, and but I also want to make sure, because America is very regional. It's, like the coast, you have people that are a little bit more excited about travel, and they're going skiing and they're going hiking. And then you have people in middle America who are living in small farm towns, who might be, very invested in their land. And so they're like spending every day, like tilling the land and doing this different sorts of things. In my area of Southeast Michigan, I feel a little bit like people, aren't really in touch so much with the natural, going out and doing things. That might just be me too, but I know that when I was in China, it was always like, we're going to go to Ximing Mountain, or we're going to go, to Zhoushan, or we're going to go, we're going to go here, we're going to do there. Way more cultural things, we're going to go to the temple, we're going to go, and even when people were like, even people that go to the park, for example, just daily life things, when people are like going and doing yoga and Tai Chi, and people are a little bit more active. Whereas in America, when the like 9:00 p.m., people are sitting at home in front of the fireplace or watching TV or disconnect themselves. Where in China, people get more connected when the evening comes, because then they go to the park and they're, singing karaoke with their friends, or playing an erhu, or doing some sort of cultural thing. So I think it's just different.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right there. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of travel within China. I was in Harbin month and a half ago. I went there to see the snow and ice city, but I purposely went early because I wanted to watch it being built, which I did to a certain extent. But even then, I was like absolutely amazed at all these people that were traveling. Now from the south, Harbin is not a cheap excursion. It's a 4.5-hour flight. The flights are not, they're not the cheapest flights, and certainly, I was staying in a hotel. I think I was paying like 450 RMB a night, but literally a week or two later, that was more than double, because it's then peak season. And Vicky's friend went there, and they went to, there's an area called Snow Village in Harbin. It's not where the ice and snow rolled, and it's a few hours drive out from there. And she was paying 3,000 RMB a night for a hotel there, because it's like peak season. And I actually feel that a lot of the Chinese people I know, they kind of live differently to sort of people in the UK. So certainly young people in the UK, they want everything new. Where I find friends I know here, they will live not meager, but they will live quite a basic sort of lifestyle on a day-to-day basis. But then when they go on holiday, they will like really push the boat out. And it was quite interesting, because last time I was in Thailand, it was still while travel was restricted to and from China because of COVID. And I went in a restaurant there, and I was literally the only one in there. It's one of these like teppanyakis where you have it in America. Is it Benihana or?
Benihana.
Yeah, Benihana. And it's actually quite an expensive restaurant. I was a bit shocked at how much it was in Thailand, but the chef who was cooking at the table, it was just me and him, and we were chatting, and he says he found out I lived in China. He says, I can speak a little bit of Chinese. I says, how do you know Chinese? He goes, well, when travel, he says, the Chinese groups come in here, and they'll come in as a group of 12, and they'll spend. He says, we're really missing the Chinese tourists, because we've got a lot of like tourists from India, and he says, but they don't spend money. He says, the Chinese come here and they really spend. So we really like the Chinese. And that's something I've noticed when Chinese do go on holiday. They won't sort of hold back. They do sort of spend. They'll stay in nice places. They'll go and eat at nice restaurants. That's something that is kind of different. In England, certainly in England, people like to have the new car on the drive, the new carpet, and it's all about sort of competing with their friends. There's very much of a keep up with the Joneses mentality in the UK, which I don't see that as much in China.
I do find myself spending a lot more here. Like, you go to Costco and you buy bulk things to fit your house out and survive for long periods of time. Whereas, like in China, you buy food for honey, put on some sweatpants, babe. Go. That's what I was nervous about. I knew Eva was going to come down, and she's dressed in her pajamas. Okay. That's why I kept looking over my shoulder, because I could see the stairs there. Like, she's going to come down and give everybody an underwear shot. But maybe I can have her say hello. But what was I talking about?
You're talking about how you spend a lot more.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like in China, you go to the wet market and you buy your food for the day, and then you go and cook it for the day. And then you go to buy the food for the day and you cook it for the day. And that's a nice kind of like way to manage your lifestyle and keep things kind of cheap. Whereas here you're buying big items and it is a very much keep up with the Joneses. This house I live in is way, way bigger than I need. It's very comfortable though. And it's so comfortable that, again, all the way back to the beginning, it keeps you confined. Whereas in China, my apartment was sort of tiny, so I didn't spend all my time in my apartment. I spent it out in the community and doing things around. And I think that that's kind of like why, like when I talked in the beginning, like the coastal cities are different, because New York, you have these small apartments and people are living more in the city because their apartment isn't their home. Their city is their home. And in China, like, your city is your home. Come here, huh? Say hi.
Hello, Eva. How you doing?
How are you doing? He says. Are you doing good? Great. Okay. Why don't you go sit down? Okay, babe.
Yeah, just quickly, I'll just a shout out to Trevor Norman. He's given us a super chat saying £5 towards getting your license there, and that is actually a point. We've bought a new car that I can't actually drive it because my temporary license expired when my last visa expired, and I have to take the written test before I can get the license again now. So got this nice new car.
Really?
But I tell you what, this car just like blows my mind. We bought the Ito M5, which is the one with all the Huawei technology in, and I'm just like gobsmacked. It has like these little warning like triangles on the mirrors, so it actually alerts you if something's in your blind spot. I'm thinking, bloody hell,
that's pretty common though.
Yeah. I obviously the car we've had is like 10 or 11 years old, so but I'm just like so amazed that it can do. And but they don't let you enable it has highway assisted driving as standard, but if you want the city assisted driving, you buy it additionally. It's 6,000 RMB, which is literally a fifth of the price of what Tesla are currently charging. But they don't let you install it until you have to take some sort of test on their app, and only after you've passed the test will it let you.
Losing this connection.
Oh, we've lost the connection for some reason. Only after you've taken the test.
Hold on. Let me take these off. Let me try the earpods.
Are we back? I've lost Matt's connection.
What do you want to do? Someone asked if you bought M9.
Okay, so I think we might be back, hopefully. I'm not quite sure why though. It seems to be StreamYard that had a problem. I don't know whether we're back or not yet. It's hard to...
No, we're not.
It should be.
Oh, see you. Some people said they see you. Still no Matt.
All right, let's just reload that. And then we'll try to get Matt back in. Hopefully we're back. Sorry about this, guys, but I'm trying to get Matt back online at the moment, but I'm not having much luck. Let me try. Okay, because we're having these issues, I think we will end the stream here. I do apologize for that. It seems there's been some issue with StreamYard. I'm not quite sure what. I am trying to sort it out. But yeah, appreciate you all coming in. And we'll try and do this again and hopefully not have a technical problem. So as always, for now, take care.